welcome everyone. So super warm welcome from all of us. So happy to be with you today here. Welcome to all the speakers to all the listeners from LinkedIn, to everyone who's joining here on Zoom. Great that you're all here. My name is Patricia Reiners. I'm a UX UI designer and lecturer from Hochschule Mainz. So it's my pleasure to welcome you to our first monthly talent track sessions. And in these talent track sessions, we will represent outstanding projects from our new talent award category. And we will offer a behind the scenes look on some of the most promising projects. So we will shine a very special spotlight on some very promising young guns. So really looking forward to that. More on the works. So I would say connect with us, might it be through LinkedIn or our newsletter or social media. Feel free to say hi. You can find all the links in the chat. So just connect with us. So why are we here today? And of course, we have an award winner with us today, the New Talent Award winner 2020, Malin Kamlah. Really looking forward to hear more about your project soon. But before we are starting with that, let me share a few words about the awards. So for everyone who is not familiar with it, I'm going to share a few background information. The awards is a global competition for excellent user experiences. It's organized by the International Design Center Berlin, the IDZ, and it's a leading German nonprofit and member-based institution based in Germany. They were founded back in 2015 with the goal to raise the recognition of value in positive experiences, in products, in services, in prototypes, and generally in visionary concepts, and also in the works of young designers. So for everyone who is listening and is working on some great experiences, feel free to have a look on our website. The call for entries is still open until May 31, and we would be happy to see some of your works in the awards as well. So just check it out. You can find all the links in the chat. So yeah, just feel free to have a look. And let me emphasize, it's not only about winning or about promotion, but I think what's even more important is the actual goal why the awards were created, and this is to really focus on the belief of good user experience design, because they actually have like a huge or ever-growing impact on shaping positive living and a better environment for all of us. And I think that most people who are listening right now or who are joining are probably designers themselves or even working with designers. So I guess that you are all probably agreeing that good design helps us in the end to really create solutions that are relevant, helps us to design products that improve our lives, and also services that help us to achieve our goals in a better, maybe also in a faster way, right? But in the best case, they are also easy, understandable, and fun to use. So a lot of things. And the second big part, which I personally think is even more interesting, is the possibility to empower. And this is really close to the project we will have a closer look on later from Malin, because good user experience design can also improve our abilities. It can open access to knowledge, to education, to health, and to support us, the user in the end, when it comes to inclusion and participation. So it's a very, very important factor in the end to creating a more accessible and fair society. In a nutshell, good user experience design should be innovative, intuitive, create satisfaction, and at the same time be responsible and integrative to create better opportunities for all of us. And that's the reason why the awards got created, as a platform to really promote those great experiences in the end, and put a focus on them through different kind of industries and fields. And what's also really important is to create a community for us designers, for us professionals, to really share knowledge, share learnings, and network, talk about user experience design, talk about different processes, and learn from each other, right? So I would say, without further ado, let's get to our main act tonight. It's my pleasure to introduce the award winner 2020, the New Talent Award, the Aimie, Your Assistant to Save Lives by Malin Kamlah. I won't make many words about the project itself, because we have the master in the mind of the project with us today. So she can do this much, much better than I can. But let me introduce our awesome speaker today real quick. Malin Kamlah, she's a junior product designer at Swipe in Berlin. She studied visual communication at Hochschule Pforzheim, and she did a semester abroad at University Halifax in Canada. So welcome, Malin. I'm super happy to have you with us today. I can only say the screen is yours.
Thank you very much. And thank you for that really nice introduction. Welcome all. It's really nice to be here. Thank you for having me. This is super exciting. And now actually the challenging part is following, because I need to share my screen. So let me try this out. So please let me know if
it works.
Cannot. Okay, perfect. Perfect. So just like Patricia already said, I'm Malin. Hi. And it's really nice to introduce my project Aimie today, but maybe also some couple more words about myself. Just like Patricia said, I'm currently working for Swipe, and hi from the Berlin home office. Maybe another thing to mention is I have a passion for some crazy, colorful, bright socks, and I love making my own pesto. So this was more about my personal life, a little introduction here, so you know a little bit more about myself. Now, I want to start this session by asking you a kind of important question. When was the last time you attended a first aid course? And actually, I have to be honest, if I wasn't doing my project about first aid, then probably the last time would have been, well, yeah, when I was doing my driving license. So quite a while ago. And the reason why I'm asking you that question is, well, 2 years ago, I was asking myself the exact same question. Back in 2019, I was listening to the radio, and I was hearing about a case where a student was falling unconscious, and the teacher did nothing, simply just calling the ambulance. But he didn't perform any CPR or first aid. And because of that, the student is now 100% disabled. And I was really shocked. I felt anger. I was asking, like, how could he? How could he not perform CPR? But at the same moment, I felt like a hypocrite, because, like I already mentioned, my last and first aid course was way too long ago. So I was doing some online research, and I was reading numbers. Scary numbers, just like that less than 50% of people performed CPR on casualties. But we could save 10,000 more lives each year if there were 10 to 20% more people performing CPR. And I was just like, wow, okay, these numbers are super low. What is the reason for that? Just why? So I digged even deeper into research, and I read a couple of reasons why people don't perform first aid. And another example would be some fear actual legal consequences when they're doing something wrong. Some pretty much just freeze or black out, so they can't remember anything. But the biggest reason is that people are scared of doing something wrong. And then they simply do nothing. Well, maybe, hopefully, waiting for the ambulance. But that is the worst you can do, waiting or doing nothing. Because our brain starts to die after already 3 to 5 minutes without oxygen. But if you take an average ambulance that needs to arrive, that is about like 8 minutes, you get quite a good impression how important first aid actually is. So I decided to stick with that topic. I was really interested and I wanted to find out more. So I did my first survey. And that survey had a little bit more than 100 participants, and 70% of the participants don't feel confident performing first aid, which didn't surprise me a lot when you read the next number, like 60% of the participants took their last first aid course 5 or more years ago. And another really interesting fact is that 1/3 of the participants are afraid of legal consequences. But this was actually showing me that there is a lack of knowledge. And what I can tell you now is that you don't need to be afraid of any legal consequences when performing first aid, because there aren't any. The best thing you can do is helping. Like, any help is better than no help. And the next step was doing some interviews. And I actually went back to my old school because, well, this is the reason why I was interested in this topic, right? Because I heard about this case with the teacher. So I interviewed my old gym teacher, and he said that they do have further education and also some first aid courses are available, but often these courses actually conflict with other courses. And then the teachers have to prioritize, and often the first aid courses are not priority 1. And then the second interview I had with an emergency nurse, and she was actually quite supportive of first aid apps in general. And she thinks that they can be really helpful. And she gave me also some advice that it's really important to have both hands free, because people are in such a stressful situation. They don't really have the time to read through a lot of text or information. And then, boom, I had my first aha moment. And that was when I was doing my third interview with a paramedic. He was actually confirming my assumption about that there is some fear about performing first aid. So actually people do nothing. And then he told me that there is what we call in German telephone reanimation, but I'm not quite sure if that word exists in English. So maybe there's a way to translate it like over the phone first aid. So there's actually someone on the phone that tells you exactly what to do. And that works. And this was the moment for me I realized that Aimie had to be a voice assistant that leads the people through verbally. So for those who don't know Aimie yet, this is Aimie.
Hallo, ich bin Aimie.
I hope you just heard what she was saying because she was actually talking. And that led me, of course, to a big challenge because, like I already mentioned, people are afraid of doing something wrong because they're in such a big, stressful situation. So how do we remove the people's fear? And my solution is Aimie as a voice assistant. And in general, the interface needs to be really simple and intuitive because the information needs to be received really quickly. So Aimie is acting here as trustworthy assistant and has kind of a leading role. And with that, she's just like showing the user that someone is there to listen and also actually giving instructions. And that should reduce the fear. And she uses artificial intelligence to make sure that the correct reactions are taken. And she's instructing verbally. And that allows the information to access actually really quickly. And the next step, what I had to do, of course, attending another first aid course, or how I found out that Germany's ranked second last in number of casualties saved. Well, this first aid course was more than just a course to practice. Actually, the course instructor gave me quite some really helpful insights on first aid in general. and also disinformation, like that Germany's ranked second last. And the Scandinavian countries are on top. And he told me that we can still learn a lot from them, just like they already teach their children in primary school how to perform first aid. So probably a kid there can actually perform CPR on an adult. And another really interesting fact is that the driving license that expires after 5 years, or you have to make your next first aid course within those 5 years. And I find that quite interesting. It actually works, obviously. And that first aid course gave me another aha moment, because I realized we have to go back to the basics. It's all about practicing, right? It's like vocabularies. The more often you repeat them, the better you get, or the better you can keep them in mind. So I realized that it had to be more than just an assistant, but actually there had to be a training mode. And in the training mode, the user can train or practice for different scenarios, but there's also some useful information in general about first aid, and also some education about legal framework. And this, together with the repetition, should reduce the overall fear. And this should give the user the confidence to actually, the confidence about the action he's taking. And that led me to another quite big challenge. How do we get people to practice? Because the people are still having in mind the question like, how likely is actually an emergency going to happen to me? Or how likely is it actually going to happen that I have to perform first aid? And my solution is gamification. So in the training mode, there is a level system that rewards the user to increase the motivation in general to practice. And of course, this concept can be extended to much more special rewards. Just like, for example, that the next training session or like a fitness course is for free, or that the next first aid course is for free. So there's still some space for improvement, but in general, this overall idea of gamification is quite important. The user needs to see a benefit in actually practicing. Now, of course, Aimie has much more nice to haves, I would call them. A couple more to mention are that Aimie is able to connect to other devices, just like, for example, the smartwatch. So whenever you're having not your phone with you, you can still have access to Aimie. And then another really important thing is that when there is any miscommunication between Aimie and you, or let's say you're right next to a really noisy street and you can't understand what Aimie is telling you, then it's also important to get to the next step manually. And that is what you can see here. Now, I don't want to go any much more deeper into the final product, because this is more about the overall process and my challenges that I had. But I'm happy to answer any questions if you want to have further information about the end result. And maybe another quite important and interesting question for you is, where is Aimie now? Well, a lot can happen in just 1 year, right? Since I graduated and finished the project. And in general, I can say that I got a lot of great feedback, and that made me really, really happy. And some companies actually showed some interest in cooperating. And my latest contact is with a student who's working on her thesis right now. She's studying rescue engineering, and she's doing her thesis with a company that is actually working on an app for professional first aiders. So the target group is a little bit different, but still the same topic. And yeah, we see where this is going to. I'm always open for new ideas and requests. And now I would say I'm handing back the mic to you. Q&A session is open, I would say. Or is there anything to add, Patricia?
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking us behind the stage here. I think it was quite a fascinating development process, super interesting to get the insights from you. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And before we are jumping into Q&A, I would love to hear if you had a personal highlight moments, something that you enjoyed the most throughout the process, something that was very special to you, what you really, really enjoyed in the process. Was there something?
Well, for sure, there were those aha moments, the
Mhm.
greatest highlights. Like when I realized, okay, actually, Aimie needs to be a voice assistant. Of course, like that was
Mhm.
such a big moment and actually influencing the overall process, right? So this was probably my favorite moment.
Awesome.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
looking back on the interview and being like, oh yeah, that was great. That was just great.
Yeah, I really loved how you shared your aha moments. I think we probably all know this from like design projects. So I think it was really interesting to, yeah, to understand your way through, yeah, like throughout the whole process, right?
Yeah.
So for everyone who is listening, if you have questions, can be anything, feel free to share them either here in the chat or I think on LinkedIn in the chat. And I'm going to ask Malin. In the meantime, I am a little bit curious to hear how did you come up with the name? Was that on purpose or what's the background of Aimie?
Yes. Well, first of all, I knew that it had to be a person or like a name from a person because it's all about this personification thing. And then I also knew that it had to be a woman, like a female voice, because women in general are better to understand. That's what I read in my research. And then I came up with Aimie. So Aimie is, well, of course, the name Aimie, but also it has AI in it. So AI stands for artificial intelligence. And then it's also short version for aid. So another like aspect of the overall idea. And then of course the ending of IE. So we're still in Germany. So yeah, people actually need to pronounce it correctly. So that's why I didn't stick with the American version, but more about like kind of the German version.
Interesting. Awesome to hear how many thoughts you put into the name. Super interesting to hear that. Also, you can close your presentation now, so we can see you a little bit better.
Okay, great.
Awesome. Yeah, really wonderful presentation. I really loved listening there, and also your visuals and gifs. I think it was really nice how you told the whole story. Really inspiring.
I'm glad.
So there's a question about the AI. So what exactly is the AI responsible for? Really good question.
So the AI is responsible for actually telling the user what to do. So it's based on simple yes and no questions. So for example, a question would be check, or more like an instruction would be check the breathing. Is the man or the woman still breathing? And then yes or no, and then it leads to the next step. So it's all about actually going through the single steps, step by step.
Interesting, and it learns on the way, probably, right?
Yeah, well, it better should know before that, right? So it's learning before it's actually used, but yeah, it's always learning.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, makes total sense, right? Yeah, it sounds like a chatbot. That's it, right? So like a little helper you have with you. Have you done any testing with your final prototype, or is this something you are planning? It would be so interesting to to get some feedback from the user, although it might be quite challenging to find the right situation, right?
That was another quite big challenge. Yes. I tried to test it, but since I didn't have the real programs to test it, and actually not having a programmed or coded AI, and also not the situation, right? Because it's always different when you're in such a stressful situation. then always people react a little bit differently. So this is still something that needs to be done. But yeah, like I try to, but I think I made the best out of how far I could get. Yeah.
Totally. That's always the problem with a concept, especially when it comes to AI. You cannot code it yourself, right?
Yeah,
Just
no.
prototype. So that's sometimes a little bit tricky, right? But I
That's
think,
true.
yeah, totally. So there is one question also about the process to follow the AI. If we are making any apps, I think this is probably like a little bit different topic. But is this something you put in consideration? Is this something you focused on, or did you focus much more on the concept than the technical part?
Yeah, I focus more on the concept actually. So how this overall app is working and what features should be in. And I just used the advantage of using an AI, but I focus more on the concept.
And the usability and itself, right?
And the
this
design,
is also
yeah.
The design, right? I think this is also like super interesting, I think, to see how you design the screens. It's very like accessible, that you like focused on voice, like all the usability learnings you had on the process. I think that this is a really interesting part also for everyone who is listening. And so you designed this when you were a student, right?
Right.
Or also, tell us a little bit, has anything changed since you won the awards? Because now you're working in Berlin, right? So has anything changed for you since then?
Well, a lot changed in terms of I moved to Berlin and I have a job that I like.
Awesome.
But other than that, on Aimie, I would probably do a little bit some things differently now, since I have the knowledge of actually designing more apps and just having more experience. But I would still stick to the original concept, because that's what I think was the core and what is still working and still a problem. Like I haven't done some research if there weren't any new apps that are maybe similar, but when I did back in 2020 my research, then there was no app such like this, at least not the combination of voice interface and assistant, and then also a training or practicing mode. So
okay,
yeah,
interesting. Yeah, it makes total sense, right? So how was that in your, when you think back about your interview for the job you're having right now? Did you talk about Aimie? Was that like a big part of it, or did you talk about other projects?
We did talk a lot about Aimie, I remember, but also some other projects in general. But also my boss is really like super cool and relaxed, and we had a nice chat together, just also about other things. And Aimie wasn't like the big focus or so. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think this is probably the best thing, right? When you talk about work, but also personal, this is really important that you're on the same level when you find a job. So great to hear that everything turned out so well for you since you won the awards. And yeah, thank you so much for taking us behind the scenes. I think it was very, very inspiring. I can say probably that if people still have oh, there is one more question, so I don't want to miss this. This is about the emotive aspect. So how did you understand when people were feeling uncomfortable? Oh, this is such a good question. How was that, or how did you understand when people really felt or comfortable using the app, or uncomfortable doing the testing? How was it for you? Like such a difficult, I think, emotion, right? Like people feel uncomfortable using certain apps or services. Maybe you can say a few words about that as well, if you have some insights for us.
So was this more about testing the app or just in general designing the app?
Yeah. So I think this is more about, oh, yeah. Okay, hi.
Hi, Patricia. Hi, Malin.
Hi.
Well, I was asking more about the emotive aspects, like emotive tech. This is a hugely emotional moment, right? And that you put users in, or people might find themselves in. So how did you understand when was the right moment? When did people start to feel comfortable when using the app? How did you test that? And this is really about like your learning curve and development. And you talked about the voice of the woman, etc., etc. So there was obviously some testing going on. And what was the breakthroughs there?
It's also about the design. So I try to pick colors that are, for example, the blue. It's always seen in medical surroundings, kind of. So this is already learned that you trust in that blue, and it has lots of knowledge, kind of. So you're trusting this blue, and it's also bringing you down because blue has quite a bringing down effect, kind of. But also this red, on the other hand, to have your attention. So I try to solve this with the interface to have like still like a calm interface, but still also the user's attention. So I think that is actually quite an important fact on how this is actually making the user feel and bring the user a little bit down and making him more relaxed, and having not too much information, just like simple, easy information that it's actually accessed quickly, but also not it shouldn't like actually bring the user more into stress, or just in general bringing him down, and making the best out of it, like actually performing first aid. Was that answering the question?
Yeah, I guess so. It's true that it's very I wouldn't say technical. It's very smooth, but it's very simple. Let's say, very down to the basics. So that I guess that hits the nail. What was the biggest obstacle when developing it?
Well, I didn't develop it, so it's not developed. That's I have to say. It's just designed. Or are you talking about the design?
Well, it's your project, so it's about your part in the work. What was your biggest challenge?
The biggest challenge was the animation, actually, because so far I just used to work with 2D design, so basically just text, pictures, and not 3D design. And Cinema 4D is a big challenging program, let's say it, or put it this way. But yeah, fortunately I had a teacher that knew really well about Cinema 4D, so I could ask for some questions, and yeah, I got some help and support from him doing the animations. Yeah, that was the biggest challenge.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, also interesting to talk about challenges, right? Because I think we all have like different challenges, and I guess this project raised probably a few challenges here and there, right? Because it's not an easy topic. So you briefly mentioned maybe like collaboration in the future, right? So you talked about like collaborating with students, but have you talked with insurance companies? They might be interested in a project like that.
Yeah, I actually was in contact with AXA, but that turned out to be like they were just not interested enough, I guess. But yeah, it would be a great option because they're interested in that as well, right? They want to save lives too. So yeah, that's quite a good point.
Yeah, maybe you can still do that and then create an international version, right? Because right now it's only in German, right?
Yeah, it's focused on the German areas, but there's always the option to extend it into international borders. Yeah.
Okay, great. So if someone wants to reach out, maybe ask a question afterwards, where is the best way to reach you? How can people find you?
Any channels, calling, writing emails, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, any channels.
Okay, awesome. I hope you're not getting like too many calls now from random people asking questions about the project. But awesome. I can only say thank you to you. I think it was very, very inspiring. Thank you for taking us behind the scenes. I really enjoyed your presentation and the whole process and all the questions as well. Super, super interesting. So I can also say to everyone who joined us here, thanks for being with us, all the people on LinkedIn and here on Zoom as well, and also to our amazing speaker, Malin, and of course to our team, to Ake, Magda, Fabian, Billy, and to Jake. And there are more events coming up in the next month. We have another deep dive in June. If you want to find out more, connect with us on the social networks, on LinkedIn, sign up for our newsletter so you don't miss any cool events, anything that comes up. And yeah, check out our website. You can find all the links now in the chat. So just connect with us, say hello, or ask questions. Hope to see you in the next event as well. And have a lovely evening, everyone. Bye.